Well, Pink Floyd fans can rejoice today because it is big news as far as the band and, of course, their music. We are talking about the Live in Pompeii being re-released today, and we're going to be going over it, a quick discussion and a bit of a special episode. This isn't so much of a 5-minute review in regards to Pink Floyd and the Live in Pompeii set. This is more of a collection of thoughts and, as well, the background history behind it, because if you are unaware, there is an interesting story behind it. So without further ado, let's talk about this special edition that has been re-released for us Pink Floyd fans out here. Hi, I'm Chili from Live Listener Raced. This is a 5-minute review on Pink Floyd's Pompeii. So, like I was saying here in regards to this album, this is a special edition that has just come out as of today, and a very few fans are going to be watching this live in the cinemas, as it has been, of course, a movie that was released back in the 70s, I think it was 1972 or 3, and it is being re-released for us in a bit more of a higher resolution. It has been bumped up, upscaled, and all the rest in regards to its re-release, which should make for a very interesting watch, very limited as far as the run is going. You know, we're probably only going to have a few days of this being out. So, Pink Floyd fans, if you have watched the remastered edition in the movies, I want to comment below and hear your thoughts on it. Now, when it comes to Pink Floyd, if you're a bit of a younger fan and maybe you're just getting into the band, this little part should be pretty interesting here. But Pink Floyd's Live in Pompeii is regarded as one of the finest moments from the bands as far as live performances can go. They were set about basically in recording to this concert back in 1971, and it was really an interesting story that follows behind how it accumulated, how it came to be, I guess you could say. So the director behind the idea anyway was Adrian Maben, and he had this idea of having Pink Floyd just performing, you know, a concert that he wanted to put some art pieces behind and see some images and all that stuff. And it was, you know, put forward to the band. They liked the idea, but they initially rejected it. So this was just put on the back burner, and, you know, it wasn't the first time that Pink Floyd had been asked to do such things. But a little bit over a year later, Adrian found himself in Pompeii. He was just being a tourist, just checking out the area, and he lost his wallet and I believe his passport as well, and retraced his steps and found himself in the amphitheater that is in Pompeii. And it was just desolate because no one was there, it was late, and he enjoyed the ambience of the silence regarding this whole scenario, I guess he found himself in. And he thought to himself, well, this could make for an interesting area for Pink Floyd to go and do their concert in. You know, if there was no one around, the ambience is just right, and of course the scenery is just amazing in Pompeii. So, with a little bit of pushing in regards to some curator, I believe, that was looking after the amphitheater at the time, who as well was a Pink Floyd fan, they managed to get them in for about 4 or 5 days worth of recording. And of course, they paid a hefty sum for the entrance fee. I don't know how much that was, but I mean, if we're talking about Pink Floyd, it could be a bit. This wasn't real. This is before Dark Side of the Moon. So this isn't, you know, up here levels, but I mean, if you're going to lock off a tourist location in order for a rock band to perform, you're going to have to pay some fees, aren't you? But this is Pink Floyd, and I guess art is art, and they will continue to do so. So yes, they managed to lock down the amphitheater for a few days while they recorded just in the middle of the amphitheater by themselves, no one surrounding them, just a film crew, the band just performing a couple of takes, and it is just, of course, a glorious affair that is just featured in regards to it. Now, it's been re-released a couple of times over the years. You know, it had an unofficial release back in, I think it was 74, which featured, of course, the original concert. But it was, when I say original concert, I mean these things were filmed in segments but put together, compiled into one, of course. And, it had its unofficial release there. But the concert was also available in regards to a special edition disc that was released many, many years ago. That's right, we are talking about the early years 1965 to 1972 box set. And this is the Obfuscation, I think it's called. It's a bit of a weird title. It's got an odd spelling, and it has many, 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 many CDs. I mean, it's I'm just looking at the runtime over here in the corner. It's a 29-hour box set, so we're talking about something like, there's 7 volumes, live music, and various other things. Now, the Live in Pompeii disc was actually included in this in a bit of a different retrograde playlist. It was compiled, so for example, Echoes was in one take and one song, as opposed to the theatrical release, which was actually separated into 2 parts. And it made more sense, I guess, listening to it there. That's how I always listen to, this album if I wanted to go and listen to it. I had this on Spotify and, access to this stuff here. So it's been available for many years in a certain method, but it just hasn't been, I guess, remastered as far as a DVD availability and really upscaled in far as all is concerned, or in its original theatrical release, I should really say. An interesting little tidbit when it came to that box set as well, it actually replaced a CD that was initially supposed to be the remastered edition of Obscured by Clouds. And I gotta say, thank God. I mean, Obscured by Clouds is a terrible album by Pink Floyd. It was also, that was also a soundtrack as well for a movie that was very unknown for its time, and still is, I guess, to this day. So, if I got that box set and it was unintentionally replacing Obscured by Clouds with Live in Pompeii, I'd be cheering. I'm sorry. If you like Obscured by Clouds, I'm terribly sorry. I don't know why, but anyway, so that was a bit of an interesting little knowledge thing there as far as early releases regarding that album. Now, when you were talking about the original theatrical release, we have the band, of course, performing in the middle of the amphitheater. They have camera crews revolving around them. There's not many crews. I think there's only really one camera just going around the band and doing its little bit for the several takes that they did over the 4 days. But a lot of parts, in particular when it came to Echoes, had visual arts just, draped in the background. It's very reminiscent, of course, of the 60s and 70s kind of psychedelic sound and the imagery that could be found, of course, within that. So there is a lot of the overdubs and cuts and edits where it's kind of acid wash and psychedelic. It's a massive affair as far as, the whole experience. It really lived up to the early days of Pink Floyd. And rightfully so, because like I said, this concert was recorded in 1971. So we aren't talking about Dark Side of the Moon, we aren't talking about Wish You Were Here, we aren't talking about The Wall. None of these albums existed up until this point. In fact, really the band only had the big breakthrough success at this point with Echoes. And that was the big, as far as what was concerned with the band, that was them kind of making a breakthrough, changing it up a little bit compared to the early Syd Barrett days, where they were mostly the psychedelic of, very psychedelic, very 60s kind of music. And I think when you're looking over in particular the Pink Floyd catalogue, it's a very interesting... Metal. I did say Echoes, that was the title. That's the big track off it. It's Metal that I'm talking about as far as the album's concerned. So there was the Syd Barrett days, Pipe at the Gates of Dawn, all the rest of those ones that we know of course, Source of Lost Secrets, yada yada yada. Amagama is a really weird one. That's got a live album as well. But by the time that the band was hitting the 70s, they were getting into a stride, if you will, with Atom Heart Mother. They were really discovering the band and what kind of methods that we're going to record moving forward. We're talking about longer compositions, getting really into the prog affair. But with metal, that's where the band starts to differentiate themselves, and it really shows, because metal is a bit more of a, it gets rid of, I guess, it casts off the cloak that is the older style of the band, and shows light of the new era, if you will. One of These Days, and Echoes in particular, the long affair of that album, nearly 24-minute long track, and it's just a fantastic record. So, when you're looking over the Pink Floyd catalogue, I think this is a fantastic bridging album that goes from the early days and then moves them forward into the new era. Now, 1971 is when it was recorded, and I want to emphasize this point, a lot as far as this is concerned, because that means a lot of the music that you're going to hear here, that makes sense, doesn't it? A lot of the music that you're going to hear on this album is early stuff, nothing that you're probably going to recognize if you're a bit more of a Pink Floyd fan that has only heard a few of their singles. So the main track that, a lot of people talk about when it comes to this will be A Saucer Full of Secrets, or Echoes, or Careful with That Axe, Eugene, which was a B-side from back in the day. There is, of course, other tracks, such as, of course, One of These Days, which I just mentioned. Fantastic bassline intro by Roger Waters himself there. And, of course, set the controls for The Heart of the Sun, which was, one of their very earliest hits, I guess. Now, the whole concert is just phenomenal. If you haven't watched it, and I have watched it from years ago, it's truly an experience to see. I think, like the era that the band found themselves in, they were really at the pinnacle of performing. That was like one of their peak eras, 1971, 72, 73, in particular. They're finding their footing, they're getting their art in place, they know what they want to be visualizing. Not that they hadn't been playing to their art style, of course, but this in particular was just one of those moments where they kind of really clicked and the gears started moving forward from there. But, this one in particular, I think, as far as the recording of it goes, Echoes is better than the studio version. I think this is the best version of Echoes that you're going to listen to, in fact. I think the guitar tone, as far as that live recording goes, is perfect. It's just peak David Gilmour right there, and if you're listening to, of course, Echoes Part 2, you will understand exactly what I mean. You listen to the guitar solo being played out in there, and it can bring you to tears, is what I'm saying. Now, clearly this also had a resounding effect within the members themselves, because many, 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 many years later, David Gilmour in his solo performing days would also come back to Pompeii, and he would record a Live in Pompeii in 2016 DVD edition, and of course featured many, many tracks that would be replayed over the nights, I guess, he was there. It's a very... Look, and it's interesting, I guess, if you were at that concert. I want to know as well. If you were at that concert, comment below and tell me how it is, because it does look like a very small amphitheater, only a few thousand, maybe a few thousand people in there. And it, of course, is David Gilmour doing his solo stuff. But then, of course, when it gets to the second parts of it, he starts to go into his Pink Floyd days. So yeah, you got 5 a.m. and Rattle That Lock and other tracks like that. But then you also have Wish You Were Here. You also have Shine On You Crazy Diamond, and many other songs that just kind of flow into it. Now, I really wish he performed Echoes here, but that was a live at Gdansk. If you can get the chance to listen to that one, that's a fantastic record as well, a live version of his. But like I was saying, I guess with this, it clearly made a resounding effect on his life. He clearly enjoyed this concert, the way it was done, and felt the need to, I guess, or was compelled to revisit this and do it again, and the performance was done more at night and light shows and all the rest like that. So I think that the concert in general obviously has been a highlight for Pink Floyd for many, many years. So, I will spend the day listening to this. In fact, I'm going to be spending a flight. I'm going to be flying soon as well to, Italy of all places. I'm not going to be going to Pompeii, but I will be visiting Rome and I will be seeing the Colosseum. So that in about, 2 weeks' time, I will be at the Colosseum, and you can bet money that I'm going to be playing this concert live, while I'm walking around the Colosseum, just imagining Pink Floyd just being in the middle there, because I think that's just going to be one of those things that's just going to take me into a new dimension, I guess you could say. So, if you are a new Pink Floyd fan, if you haven't really listened to much of their stuff, or, really want to get into it, this would be an interesting starting point. It is a little bit, like I'm saying, it is a little bit off kilter towards what their music is compared to what they are famous for, but I think it's a really good stepping stone. So today we are going to be listening to Live in Pompeii, the remastered edition, and of course I want to hear your thoughts in regards to this one. So, I hope you enjoy it everywhere, and everyone who is out there at the moment watching, listening, and just enjoying this overall experience. Pink Floyd fans, if you're curious, I have also done a ranking to all of their albums, including solo material, which was separated into 2 parts, of course, because there was so much to cover. And if you're interested, link will be in the comment section below, or in the info if I remember. So, anyway, I hope you have a great day, everyone, and don't forget to stay spicy and comment below with your thoughts on this record. If you've enjoyed this content, make sure to smash that like button, subscribe to us, and stay notified for future music-related content because it keeps our manager happy at the end of the day. We are also on Discord, Instagram, Facebook, and all those other social platforms if you want to check us out. As always, people, you have a great day and stay spicy.